Good afternoon, everyone. I have 4:59. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to give some people time to join. So just, you'll have a little patience with me. We will get started momentarily. I see people are coming in one after the other now. So thanks for your patience. Okay, I have 5:01, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know everybody's time is valuable, so let's get going. I am Dallas Jones. I am Vice President at Ecosense. And today we're going to be talking about radon testing schools with the EcoQube Pro. If any of you have done school testing before, I would bet that it's been done with either charcoal or perhaps EPERMs. We at Ecosense, we think, have created a very sophisticated and yet affordable, competitive alternative to doing passive time integrating devices or using passive time integrating devices to test schools or large buildings like multifamily apartments and other large projects. So that's what we're going to talk about is the EcoQube Pro. By the way, if you'll look down at the or up or to the side, wherever your controls are, if you will see there is a place there where you can put in a chat, or you can ask a question, that sort of thing. Raise your hand if you have a question as we go through this. Please put it in, and then at the end I'll get to those. I can even turn on mics for people where you can ask your question if need be. So get my controls going here. All right, so for those of you who are familiar with the EcoQube, which has been around for a while and available on Amazon for consumers and from our website, what we've taken to create the EcoQube Pro is the same basic device. It has a very sophisticated sensor inside, and we changed the firmware and we changed the software where it would be usable for doing testing in short-term situations for both large buildings as well as single-family homes. And we then put it through the device evaluation process where it could be approved by NRPP. So it's a device that's been tested and evaluated and approved by the powers that be for use throughout the United States by different programs. In the case of say, home inspectors who are doing small buildings, single family homes, for example. We do lease these in a 4-unit case, you can see at the top right. And it's a very affordable way to do testing. And we include calibration and the lab service and everything for those testers. But we also have larger cases. You can see a 45-unit case. And this is really what we intended to be able to do with the EcoQube Pro, is provide a way where professionals like yourselves, project managers, could put people out on jobs testing these large projects like schools. It comes with a mobile app that you use to start and stop the device. There's a web dashboard for keeping track of your projects and your reports. And so I'll go through that as we move forward. So as I mentioned, it's good for all sorts of short-term testing applications. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on schools, and I'll show you an example of some schools that we've had clients test as we move along. So as I mentioned, it is NRPP approved, and Ecosense is an NRPP approved laboratory. We're also accredited by the New York Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, and we are New Jersey licensed business. We're licensed in Illinois. So in other words, if you have technicians that are needing to do work in those states, they can operate perhaps as affiliates under our license, depending on the situations. These are real continuous monitors. They provide incremental 1-hour readings. One of the most important things I think about using a CRM, if you're familiar with the protocols, and I'm sure you are, is that with charcoal, typically you would deploy a single charcoal canister in every classroom or every apartment. And if you find something that's elevated, then you do a confirmatory test before you would make a mitigation decision. With a continuous radon monitor, since you have hourly readings and it's a device that you can tell whether there's a failure typically, then you can make a decision on a single deployment, so that saves the cost of having to go back and do a confirmatory follow-up test. And that's good for you and good for your clients. And it also eliminates the need to do blanks and spikes. You'll still have to do duplicates because CRMs require a duplicate every 10 locations. But you will not have to do blanks because they're not applicable with the CRM, and there's no requirement to do spikes with a continuous monitor as well. So that also saves money and problems getting them off to a calibration chamber to do spikes and so forth. The mobile app has the ability to start and stop the device. You can set it for a 48-hour, a 72-hour, or a 96-hour test duration. As I mentioned, we used the basic core of the regular EcoQube, which stores all its data on the cloud. So in this instance, where we could do short-term testing and not have to require it to be connected to Wi-Fi, it's using the onboard memory. So you can test up to 96 hours. We also have it designed where you can put it on a 4-hour delay, a 12-hour delay, or a 24-hour delay, depending on the circumstances. If you set it for say a 96-hour deployment period and you want to pick it up in 72 or some other time period, then you can stop it with the app, and it will log the time that you stop the test within the app. And then we take care of calibration on these. We have the ability to calibrate these devices, and as people who have them for continuous lease options. Then at the end of the year, we will exchange them with freshly calibrated units. If you're doing project testing, which I'll get to as we move forward, and you're only renting for say a week or a month, then you can count on them being within the required calibration dates. The sensor, as I mentioned, is highly efficient. It's capable of gathering 30 counts per hour per picocurie per liter, which makes it one of the most sensitive or efficient sensors available for doing this kind of testing. By comparison, if you look at most of the commonly used professional continuous monitors that cost a lot of money to purchase, they get anywhere from 3 to 4 counts per hour per picocurie per liter. What that means is you're going to be able to see incremental hourly readings that are quite accurate, and our monitor has been evaluated by a number of different universities, as well as the folks at Kansas State University and the Canadian proficiency program, and it performs right along and tracks right along with an AlphaGuard device, which is a unit that costs about $10,000 with a very sophisticated sensor. So we're very proud of the measurement capability. Since it's a CRM, you're going to get quick results. You're not going to have to mail off canisters to a laboratory, which is oftentimes a problem, because if there are flight delays because of weather and they get rerouted, or they get lost and they don't get to the lab in time, then you lose the ability for the lab to analyze them. So you don't have to worry about mailing these off. The mobile app is easy to use for the deployment and track all of your reports, all of your data, and keep your records. There's a QR, or I should say a barcode on every device. You connect to them with Bluetooth, or you can just scan that barcode and connect to the device. It will find any device that's in close proximity of the Bluetooth, but obviously if you're rolling down the hall of a school or an apartment building and you've got a cart full of devices, rather than having to have it find all of them, you can just scan that barcode and it'll connect right to that device and make it fast and simple. The dashboard enables you to manage your projects. You can create a project name and put in all the information for that particular project, and then all of your tests for that project will go under that project. So it makes it easy to keep your files and records. We also have the ability for you to pull your duplicate tests because they're identified when you deploy them, and you can pull a summary of that to put into your master report. As I mentioned, that we do have those accreditations and licenses. So if you have people that need to be to deploy these in certain states, then that don't have the necessary credentials to do that, they can work under our credential. One of the things that makes the continuous monitor such a great solution for this, provided that it's affordable, and we've made it affordable, is the fact that you're able to look at the incremental readings and see the trends from, say, day to night, or when the air handler is running or when it's not. And you all know that in a school, for example, the radon concentrations could be low when the air handler has been running for a while, and then it shuts off and the concentrations may build. and throughout the night. And then there's a question of, well, what time do you turn it on in order to dilute the concentrations with ventilation before the children come into school? And then it can get complicated with weekends and longer vacation periods as to, you know, how you're going to manage that air handler. So if you're using charcoal and you do an initial test and it appears to be an elevated concentration, and then you do a confirmatory test, and so now you've decided, okay, this particular room or apartment needs to be mitigated, then now the only information you can provide the mitigator is, you know, point them in the direction of that particular room or apartment. And now they're going to really need to get some incremental data with a continuous monitor to help them determine, you know, what is the best solution. And so you're going to be steps ahead for the mitigation contractor with that single test, because you're going to have this data to provide. We've made these where they can be deployed easily with small command strips. If you're familiar with command strips, they kind of snap up when you want to remove them from the wall, and they don't affect the surface paint or whatnot. So they're safe to put on the walls as long as you follow the directions. And these are so lightweight that you can use the poster size command strips, which you can buy in quantities of. I think you can get a box of 120 of these. That's very affordable on Amazon. So you can put these on the wall. It needs to be an interior wall, of course, and at least 20 inches above the floor, and plug it in. And then the adapters, power adapters, all have this do not unplug and this warning on them. I'll share this with you. On the very first school that we tested, I think there were about 70 some odd test locations, and there were 2 out of the 70 that got unplugged for just a short period and then plugged back in again. And in determining, you know, how that happened, we discovered that it was one culprit, and it was one of the teachers. And the teacher was in one classroom and decided she needed to charge her cellular phone, so she unplugged it and plugged in her charger, and then she then plugged it back in again and went across the hall to teach another class and did the same thing. So we made sure we put these labels on all of the power adapters and make it part of your notification to the school administrators and or the apartment folks that hey, you know, these need to be kept plugged in. We really have not seen, and quite frankly, we were unsure just, you know, how much of a problem this was going to be, but we've been very pleased that we haven't seen this to be an issue. We've had testers test both apartments, a number of large multifamily buildings, as well as a lot of schools, and very seldom do we have an issue with the power. So, and of course, if it comes off and comes back on, it just continues to test. But they really need to be, you know, powered, because they're not going to continually run without that. And the reason that is because the sensor, being that that efficient, you know, needs some power in order to get those good hourly readings that you can count on to really see what's happening from 1 hour to the next. I see a question came in. We'll get to that shortly. Thanks for asking. Again, please, if you have questions, put them into the chat or wherever, and you can raise your hand and let me know. Okay, so here you can see that, again, you can connect to it with Bluetooth. You can also scan the barcode, which is on the side. In the photograph, he's actually connecting via Bluetooth. The QR code you see on the front is a label that explains that there's a radon test in progress. Do not disturb. If somebody does take a photo of that, scans the QR code, then it will give take them to a website where right away that they can see that there's you know, a radon test in progress gives them what the standards require for you know, protocol conditions, and you know, there's nothing to be concerned or afraid of, and that sort of thing. So that notice is all on the front. The barcode that you would actually scan to connect to it is over on the side. You can't see it in that photo. And then the app is real easy to use. One of the questions that comes up is well, what if you don't have a good Wi-Fi connection? You know, can you deploy these? And the answer is yes. As long as you have the app open, so in other words, you connected to the app while you did have Wi-Fi, even if you have no Wi-Fi at the location, or the Wi-Fi port, doesn't matter. The Bluetooth doesn't need the Wi-Fi in order to connect to the device, and where you can start and stop it. We just recently had one of our customers testing a senior living facility that apparently, as he described it, was part of it was built into a almost a mountainside, and it was a new building in this case. And when he got there to test, they just completed it, and they were testing about 65 or 70 locations inside this large facility. And the first thing he noticed when he got in is he had no phone connection, but he was still able to deploy all the devices and retrieve them with the Bluetooth. Every location will, you will be able to get a complete test report. Now, whether you provide each of the individual test reports to your client, or only those that are elevated is a decision that you can make, but they will all be there on your dashboard, where you can attach them to a master report if you'd like to do that. As I mentioned, you can do single family testing with these also. If you do that, you start the test in a different place on the app, or excuse me, yeah, on the dashboard as far as doing your reports. And the single family reports are complete with all of the information you needed to have to be compliant with the ANSI ARST requirements, including all the recommendations and so forth. But in a multifamily or a school situation, we know you're going to be putting these all together into a master report. So we didn't want to have so much paperwork redundantly repeating, you know, test recommendations and so forth. So we kept it to a 2-page report. It'll have all the information there for your project and your client, and the location and the device used and so forth. And it'll have the trend chart, or the graph of the hourly readings, and then there'll be a page showing you a printout of all the hourly readings as well. Oop. Well, did I lose a slide here? Hang on. From current slide. Well, so I guess I'm at a point where what I really want to do, and I'm surprised that got there, is I want to show you a couple of things, starting with the dashboard. So let me get over here to where I can find my screen, and I may need to call on somebody to tell me whether you can see it. So please bear with me for just a second. So I see I have Mike Walther on the phone, on the call. I just turned on, or gave you permission to open your mic. Mike, can you see my screen now with the project dashboard?
Yeah, you have the project dashboard and the EcoQube Pro tab options on the left.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Just wanted to make
Mhm.
sure I had to move on and start talking, and you guys are wondering what the heck I'm doing. Thank you. All right,
Mhm.
so as you see on the left side of the dashboard, we've got project, we've got single tests, settings, and support. So when you first create your account and you go into settings, you can put your information in. You can put for your account. You can put in a logo if you want your logo to go on reports. So you can upload that there. Your company information. This is a company that did a number of school testing, and he didn't mind if we shared his app, and the school district is quite proud of all their test results, and they've published them, so they said that they didn't mind either. So then you can do single tests. If you do that, then you'll actually go in and all of your tests for doing single family homes, for example, will be filed here. And then if you're going to do projects, then you can create a project. So here you can see in the case of this company, they've done quite a number of schools, starting with the academy up here at the top, and then there's an elementary school, and you run on down. So they did a number of them. The latest school they did back before school ended for the summer was a high school, and you can see the information for the project and so forth. And then you can also then look at all of the different devices. So it's going to show you on the dashboard what status the devices are in during the deployment. So when you deploy them, they'll show up as in progress, and then they may show that you've stopped the test, and then once they've been uploaded, it will show uploaded as you see here. So all of your locations will be here, where you can create a summary report from all the different locations. And I know this particular school had a lot of locations. I don't remember just how many, but it was I think close to 100. And one of the reasons why I said the school was very proud of their results is during the COVID trouble, they went ahead and invested in some very large ER or HRVs, commercial HRVs for all their schools to increase air quality beyond just radon. So they knew they had a lot of really good balanced ventilation in all the schools, and it really proved out when they did the testing. They were all really quite low as a result of the work they had done on the schools. So it paid off not only for other air quality issues, but also for radon. You can click on any of them, and it will give you the summary of the particular location. There you can see the trend chart, the hourly data for that particular room, and you can see that it ranged from 0.2 picocurious to about 0.7 throughout the deployment period. And then once the report is generated, you can actually view the individual reports over in the report file. I could click on them and open them up, and so forth. The way you have people to access the mobile app. Let's say you are a company I'll pick a state. You're in Maryland, and you have a project in Illinois, and you don't have any employees in that area, so you want to hire a subcontractor. Then you can invite testers to have access to the project in this case. He was a kind of a one-man show, so he did all the testing himself. So he just has his name here. But if you want to invite a tester, then basically all you're going to do is put in the name, the email address, and the certification number, and it's going to send an email to them with an access code that they can then put into the EcoQube Pro app that they download from either the Apple Store or the Google Play, and then they can get in and access any devices associated with this project. So that's the way that works. It's very easy to put together a report with all the data that you have. What I want to show you next, if I can stop sharing for just a second and share again, is what the final project report looked like. And what we discovered in this particular, for this particular client is he's a home inspector, and he had never done a large project like this before. So he had never developed a large project master report template. So we created one for the school report. And so we have that available. If you need to have the template, then we can certainly help you and even put it together for you if need be. And you can see, you know, as I scroll down here, if I can get it to scroll, it'll have the scope of the measurement, the summary of the results, explanation of you know, what the recommendation is depending on the results. It talks about a total of 88 continuous monitors were deployed, and then there were additional 8 duplicates side by side, and so all that is part of the report. If you keep scrolling, then you can see that we've got the information about the standards and so forth. Then we get to where we actually scanned in the floor plans, and that'll be all the locations tested. And then you get to all the individual results. So you can see, you know, room 127, when it started, when it stopped, how long it was there, 48 hours after a 4-hour delay, and so forth. And then, you know, the radon concentrations there on the right. So all that gets placed into the report. You can see that where the duplicates were marked, and there's a easy way to do that on the app when you deploy them. And as we go through all of that and you get to the end, we'll get there in a minute, you'll see that here is the duplicate report, and it's showing all the side-by-sides that did duplicate in the gym and room 15 and 20 and office C and so forth. And you can see what the test results were and what the relative percent difference was, and then the in control limit. So that's the chart explaining what that is. And then because we're the lab, we sign off on it. And that's a summary breakdown and so forth. So then you could attach in any individual results you felt were appropriate. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you, but I know there were some questions coming in, so I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. And I do want to explain one thing before I take those questions, and I may need to share this one. Well, never mind. I'll just tell you about it. So we have a lease program where you could lease these in large quantities, you know, month after month. But we found that a lot of testers, particularly if they're subcontracting or whatnot, just don't know whether they're going to keep them busy or not. So what we have been doing is just quoting jobs. And we want to make sure that when we give you a quote, that our prices are competitive with what you would spend on charcoal. By the time you buy all the charcoal devices you need for each test location, you buy enough to do of course the duplicates and then the blanks and then figure your spikes and your shipping and so forth. And then we'll quote you a price for that project and then provide the devices for you to use for a short-term rental. Obviously, the best way to really economize on your test costs is if you have more than one building, then you can have enough to test the largest building and then do that deployment, and then you use them again for the next building and the next building, and the more times you use them, obviously the per test cost comes down, and it can become really affordable if you've got several buildings in your project. Less than using charcoal, but we really want to try to keep them even if you only have one building. Exception, I guess, where it may not be practical is if it's a very small project and with one building, then perhaps we would work a different kind of lease with you. So I see we have a question in the chat. So there is no battery inside the unit for backup. So if they they'll hold for a little bit, but then then they will stop. So yes, you'll need to. It will pick right back up again where it left off. So if it's just a power glitch or it's off for 5 minutes, it'll come back on and pick right up where it's off again. If it's going to go for obviously for a large storm or something where it's out for quite a long time, then yeah, you could lose your data. Of course, if it's a large storm like that, then it's probably not a good test anyway, right? Because of the weather situation. Could you use a USB battery bank? Yeah, if you are in a situation where maybe you have a particular spot, yeah, you can. They're compatible with that, but I don't know that it would be practical money-wise to have those out for large deployment, if that answers your question. And then let's see. So there was an attendee talking about the $30 a month per monitor. That's our pricing for if you were doing a 4-pack. So if you were doing a 4-pack and you were going to lease it for the long term, and we have a lot of users doing that for doing smaller single family tests like home inspectors, then yeah, you would have 4 units would be your minimum. They come in a case together, and then that includes all of the calibration. It includes our analysis. The way we analyze these is we have AI that will scan all the hourly data for any anomalies, and if something looks like it falls out of the parameters that we put into there, then it gets kicked out for a manual review. But they get posted over to the dashboard pretty quickly. I think I appreciate the comments here. The fact that when you look at being able to include the calibration as part of the service, and it includes all the software and the report generation and everything, then it does make it affordable. So yeah, it works on both Android and iOS, as well as thanks for bringing that to my attention. So you do have the ability to put it on Wi-Fi. So as you're setting them up, it'll come up and say Wi-Fi, and typically you would just skip and move on to deploy it. But if you do have Wi-Fi in the facility, then you can put them on Wi-Fi, and then you can monitor them remotely. You know, from your location while the test is in progress. So another question, can we have our lab calibrate the device to save costs? Right now, we're the ones who have the software to do that with. If you want to, you know, talk to me about that afterwards, then give me a call and I'll get a little more information. But be interesting to know who this anonymous attendee is. So yeah, we could certainly discuss it. Let's see, what else do I have? Am I missing a question here? I think I got them all. I'm going to give you one more chance to ask a question. Does anybody have any questions or comments other than what I've pointed out? Do you have Wi-Fi APs that you recommend so what we've discovered on the Wi-Fi, if you put them on, there are some routers that are dual band, and if they're dual band routers, a lot of them make it easy to connect to 2.4 gigahertz, which is what's required, or 5. But some of them don't. Some of them are, you know, it'll just show the 5 gigahertz. So what you have to do to get them to connect in that case is, if you're going to put them on Wi-Fi, is get to the perimeter of the Wi-Fi signals. So in situations like our EcoGuard device, for example, you may have to get just on the edge of that where it will then show up the 2.4 gigahertz, and then you could connect and then put it where it needs to go. You could certainly, because you're putting them on a 4-hour delay, if you had a project where you were wanting to put them on Wi-Fi, you could get, you know, to the place where you could catch that 2.4 gigahertz, get them started on the Wi-Fi, and then deploy them where they need to go, if that's the case. As far as the ability to do 5, yeah, we've looked at the engineering on what it would take to get into the 5 gig connection, and if I'm following correctly, maybe we need to have a conversation offline. But there's still some questions on you know, where that's going, from what I understand, and I'm certainly not the engineer. And then we've seldom had problems. We've had a few, but seldom had problems, as long as people knew what to do to get it put on the dual band. And fortunately, there are not many that are just 5 gig. As that gets, the big difference, in case you don't know, between the 2.5 and the 5 is the 2.5 is not as fast, but it covers a broader area. The 5 gig is much faster, and people like it if they're doing gaming and that sort of thing, but it's going to cover a much smaller area, a smaller footprint. At this point, you know, we're, you know, at the 2.4, and we'll be watching development on that. But yes, it sounds like you've got a lot of knowledge on this, so I'd love to talk to you about it. Any other questions? Great. So here's what I request. If I'm going to send everyone that has registered for this webinar a request for quote form. And if you have a project that either you're about to bid on, or let's say you've already bid it, but you haven't, maybe even gotten it, but you haven't, you know, it's scheduled for, you know, sometime in the future, in you know, a week or two at least. then let me know what you've got and fill out the form and send it to me, and let me give you a quote. You may be really surprised at how affordable these are. We have a client that has offices around the country that does a lot of VI work and new construction, radon and VI work, as well as mitigation on existing buildings. And they tried out on one project. It was a school that had about 150 rooms that they were contracted to do. And they liked them so much, they said, okay, we've got a multifamily building that we'd like to do. And so we just did everything by quote. And they've now done about 24 jobs where we're just giving them the quote. And quite frankly, if they'd just been renting them the whole time, on a regular monthly fee, they'd probably be saving a little bit, but they feel more comfortable with it because they may have a period where they just would not have anything, I suppose, but it looks like they're staying busy all the time, which is fine with us. So we'll be glad to work with you. We want to have customers try them, deploy them, see how well they work. We're making little improvements on the software and the dashboard all the time as we get feedback. So we have some good coaches out there that are saying, well, we suggest you do this or do that, and we're trying to make it even better than it already is as we learn. So give us a shot. My email is djones@ecosense.io. As I said, I'll send out that RFQ form. It'll have all that information on it. And I hope we can talk soon and you'll give us a shot. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.